morning. This is Rich Sierra, your host. I'm president of Florida Small Business Legal Center. I'm the host of Business SOS podcast. This is episode number 33 of Business SOS. This is the second episode for the year 2024. I want to wish you a happy new year and prosperous and new year and with great health for you and your family. And thank you for listening to the show. We've been doing this now for over 6 months. We're very excited. And I'd like you to participate in the show. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also, I'd like you to follow the show as well and share it with your friends. We provide some valuable content for business owners. And this information that, for the most part, is not available, readily available unless you have a consultation with an attorney. So what I try to do with the podcast is really give you kind of real-life examples of my interviews with many business owners that I've had before, and how to handle these situations. As a business owner, you're going to be facing a number of challenges, legal challenges throughout your journey. So what I try to do is give you some tips and some advice, and perhaps to help you recognize some of those challenges and give you a way that you might be able to handle it, but also give you the information that you need when is a good time to call an attorney. So today I want to talk about, this is really a part 2 of an episode that I did back in June of episode number 7, which basically is to recognize online scams. And in this particular episode, I want to talk about trucking automation scams. Recently, I've had the opportunity to meet a number of prospective clients, and also some of them actually have become clients they have fallen victims of this new trend called trucking automation. And the way it works is this way. They advertise online. Sometimes they're Facebook ads, might be Instagram ads, promising you that if you invest anything over $100,000, could be $200,000 and above. I've seen even higher numbers than that. They will basically purchase a truck on your behalf, one of those shipping trucks with a large trailer, and then you will, in essence, lease that truck to them or let them manage that truck for you, and they will assign a driver, they will get insurance, they'll get the DOT number, and you're going to go ahead and share the profits, and they guarantee you profits in a sense between, $4,000 and $8,000 per month by you making this large investment. It sounds like a good deal. You invest $100,000 and you're going to be getting, for maybe 5-6 years or more, you're going to be getting $5,000 a month or plus in passive income. Unfortunately, for many of these victims, has not been the case. What has happened is basically these companies, they are extremely skilled at making a great presentation. They have professional and very, I'm using that term lightly, highly skilled salespeople. They give you a great sales presentation. They put a PowerPoint presentation. They give you a Zoom call. They give you assurances. They nurture you. They make you feel comfortable. And before you know it, you aren't transferring money over $100,000 to this account with the hopes that you go ahead and become now an owner of this large truck, the shipping truck, where you're going to be generating profits. What happens in some of these cases, what has happened is that after the money's transferred to these accounts, you never hear from them. The people who have invested this money from these companies, they don't hear from the people that invested money. You hear them all the way through the time that the money's transferred. And then after that, they're trying to follow up. They say, yes, it's coming. Sometimes they have an email, say, yes. They have a welcome email, welcome to the company, welcome to the team. You're going to be getting information from us. A month goes by, you never hear anything else. 2 months goes by, you don't hear anything. Sometimes they send you an email with some type of purported bill of sale. They say, we're going to have the truck is operational. Here it is. But you do not have a a VIN number. You do not have any type of actual verifiable information as to whether or not the funds that you invested with these companies or with this company are actually utilized for that purpose. So then after that, the owner, the investor gets frustrated and obviously concerned. And in some cases, I've seen people putting their children's college fund into these companies. I've seen them borrow money at a high interest rate. Some of these companies have finance companies that they have collaborated with, for lack of a better word, in which they actually provide quote unquote financing, and then they take loans for 18%, and find out that this investment is for nothing because it's not an investment. And to make matters worse, I've seen situations where, and this is all recent, where people actually go to the offices of these companies, which they actually visited these companies, and they had offices, they had people there, they had quote unquote trucks lined up, they have dispatch centers. When they go now, there's nothing in that office space. It's some type of surreal movie type that you don't believe that it's actually happening. So they actually go to the office space where they actually saw them before they had this quote unquote operations going, and now there's nothing. There are no trucks, there's no people, just an empty office space. So what do you do in this case? What does the investor do? Clearly their money is gone. They're rightly panicking because they say, my life savings went to this investment and I just got scammed. And some people that I have spoken to, they feel embarrassed, and I tell them there's nothing to be embarrassed about. There's nothing to feel, there's not the fault of the investor that somebody took advantage of them. In hindsight, they may feel maybe I should have gotten help. Like anything we do in life, hindsight is always 20/20. So, but at the moment, because the tactics that were used, and in my opinion, the manipulative tactics that were used to basically draw someone who really had these hopes and dreams and aspirations to invest and generate passive income, and they really made this emotional decision, it happens. So the reason I say this to you is because, I'm going to focus specifically in trucking automations, is because it seems to be the scam of the month, or the scam of the season, or the quarter. I see too many of them, and there's several companies doing that, and some of them actually we're suing as we speak. So if you're by any chance you are looking into these opportunities, if you're actually considering it, the first thing I will advise you is that to contact an attorney that not only will review the contract, but also will help you do the proper due diligence as to whether or not this particular quote-unquote business opportunity is for real. Fortunately, in many cases, there are reviews. So you can type this company name, reviews, whether this particular business opportunity is a scam. It is on the web, but it's available. And in fact, in some cases, I know like 3 or 4 cases now that some of these investors have created groups in Facebook. They have created groups in Instagram. They have WhatsApp chat that they're communicating to make sure that other people do not fall for this. And the reason we're getting all this information is that in some of these cases, I know in 2 in particular, the employees of these companies are coming forward with information to turn in the people that are actually perpetrating this fraud. They're actually calling the investors and saying, listen, what you just did, this was a scam. Call law enforcement, call the FTC. The employees of these companies are the ones basically coming forward You're providing this information to us. So what are some of the characteristics that I see here that how do you can recognize whether or not the opportunity you're looking at might be a scam? Okay. One of the things, the contract is going to be well written. So do not just look at whether the contract is, legal contract. Yes, the contract is going to be very well written, but it's going to have a lot of hoops for you to jump through in enforceability. We talked about that in a number of episodes, that the contract is only as good for you as your ability to enforce it. So many of these call for arbitration clauses. And I've asked a number of people, do you know what arbitration is? They say no. And I said, let's talk about that. Okay. Nothing wrong with having an arbitration clause in a contract. But what it does is basically bypasses the court system and you go into a private court, so to speak, like the American Arbitration Association. There are other groups as well that only do arbitrations. But the point is, when you go to an arbitration process, there's no public record of the arbitration with the exception of an award at the end of the case. In arbitration, usually it could cost more money to start an arbitration than going to court because there's some fees you got to pay the arbitration company. There's some deposits you got to make to the arbitrator. So depending on the amount that you're seeking, the larger the amount that you're seeking to collect from arbitration, the larger the entry point is going to be. So it will not be uncommon. You got to pay a $5,000 entry fee or a filing fee for an arbitration that you're seeking over $100,000. Whereas in the court system in Florida, it'll cost you $401 to go to circuit court. In the federal court, it'll be about $400 as well. So you see my point, that the entry point for arbitration is a lot higher. Another question that you have to basically ask is, okay, what are the guarantees? When can I get my money back? Another common theme that I see is that you have to wait. There's a long waiting period before you can actually say, okay, the guarantee, I can exercise my guarantee. I've seen it as large as 2 years. So you enter into this contract, you spend $100,000 for this quote-unquote trucking business, and you cannot exercise the guarantee after 2 years. Say, if you don't get your money back in 2 years, we'll refund you the money. And 2 years are gone. They could be gone by then. So it is a long time to wait for you to receive your money back. There's also another theme that I see here is that the actual amount of time that when the actual truck will be operational. And I've seen it change. And I'll just give you an example. One of the contracts that I've seen is say, okay, if your truck is not operational in 90 days, we'll go ahead and you're entitled to seek your refund of your deposit. And in some of the cases that I'm dealing with, that actually has happened the case. And we're trying to exercise that as well. So you have to look at, so when you have that type of time frame, there's also a red flag. You have to look at whether or not you're actually going to have your business, your truck, quote unquote, operational within a time period. Another thing you have to look at is what it's going to cost me to enforce this contract. And one of the things that I see here is that in many cases, the victims of these scams do not have the resources required to take all the way to the end. Some cases they do, some cases they don't. Okay? A contract is only as good as the ability to enforce the contract. Remember that. So if you have basically invested your life savings, you have borrowed money at 18% interest from some finance company that you have to pay that loan, you got to make a decision. How much money do I have now to get my money back? And from whom? So if it's strictly a company debt, the company can decide to file bankruptcy, and then you have to deal with the bankruptcy court. That's a different conversation of whether or not they can get protection from bankruptcy court. But when we do our cases, we sue the individual officers because the bankruptcy court is not going to protect anyone from committing fraud. So, but that's a different conversation. But the point is the individual officers, the people that perpetrated the fraud, have to be included in that particular cause of action. So the calculation has to be made, okay, if I lost this amount of money, what is it going to cost me to try to get my money back? Because you'll have to spend money. And we have to look at the contract as we find it. Look at the facts as we find them. Every fact is different. But that's a calculation you got to make as well. A question that I have that I get very often is like, Rich, will there be any guarantees that I'll get my money back? The short answer to that is no. There are no guarantees in any type of business litigation. There are no guarantees, and there's no attorney in the world that should guarantee you that you will get your money back, because we do not know that. There are many factors. You first have to get a judgment against the people that you're suing. This case will be the company that they're utilizing to perpetrate the fraud, and you got to get it against individuals as well. And then you have to, that's after a trial, and then you have to enforce that judgment. So there are two parts. You have to win the case first, number one. Number two, then you have to enforce it. And then you have to try to find the assets to collect. And you have to fund that along the way. The best thing to avoid, the best thing to prevent having to enforce a contract through a scam is basically not getting into it. So my purpose today is to share with you some red flags. I've called them yellow flag, but this is a huge red flag that I want to at least, have you pause before you look into this and really think clearly. And we're very familiar with these. I've seen a number of these contracts. I'm familiar with them just, for the purposes of, what we do. Obviously, we're business attorneys. We do offer a free complimentary 30 to 30-minute consultation. You're welcome to call us, and we're happy to take a look at that for you and advise you accordingly. You kind of have an idea how the conversation is going to go based on this podcast. But every situation is different, so I'll certainly look at that with an open mind. But right now, my inclination is to really be more towards the negative side, simply because I've not seen yet one of these companies making money for anyone. In fact, I've seen this to be so brazen that they're just taking the money and running away. And in fact, in some cases, I see that they're telling people, instead of giving the company the money to our company, we want you to transfer the money to this other company, which has nothing to do with the contract in the first place. And then they go away. And then, what happens is when you start sending money to other parties unrelated to the contract, then we need to chase those other parties as well. So it becomes more of a litigation challenge. It's not an impossibility, but from you as the plaintiff, as the attorney evaluating this case, to say, okay, who else received the money and how much? So that entity or that individual who received money for this contract now has to be brought into the litigation. So instead of suing one or two people, you're suing four now. So you're basically adding to what I call the litigation matrix. You have the cost of action times the number of people. So there's four people to be served. There are four defendants. You see where I'm getting at. The more people you add to the lawsuit, because they were involved in this case or in your matter or in your transaction, the more it's going to cost you. So there are no guarantees that you get your money back. And what I encourage, anyone that I speak with, I said, not only are we going to pursue the civil route, but also I encourage you to also pursue the criminal route as well. This is an investment that you made. You feel you were defrauded. There are law enforcement agencies like the SEC, the FBI, the state attorney general. They have consumer crime divisions. I say put a complaint as well. I mean, there's no reason why to pursue all the possible avenues to protect yourself if indeed you have been a victim of a trucking automation scam. So with the civil route, we only have so much leverage because the purpose of the civil route is to collect money damages. And it only depends on the resources that you have to pursue it. You as the plaintiff. If you go into law enforcement route, you're using the arm of the state or federal government that can actually help you. And if they see many of these complaints come with the same entity, they see kind of a common thread, it is likely, or hopefully, they'll look into it further. And they might be able to assist anyone who's been a victim of these companies recover some money. But the best way to not to have to enforce a contract due to a scam is don't get into it in the first place. So seek legal assistance, and if there's any mistake, quote unquote, and I say this without judgment, of course, to people that have actually, unfortunately, fallen victims of these scams, is that they did not seek the advice of counsel beforehand. And we're not talking here about investing $10,000 or $5,000, something, and it's still an important amount. But the amounts that I'm seeing here they're large. We're talking, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. I've seen as high as $500,000. And in every occasion, I asked, did anyone help you with this? And they said, no, I just kind of did it on my own. And, I say that without judgment, but I say it with somewhat, dismayed, because this could have been prevented with a simple phone call. And if you're listening to this today and you're considering this, and if you listen to the podcast and one person at least says, you know what, I looked at this, I listened to your podcast, I decided not to pursue it, then this was productive. Or if you share this with someone who perhaps might be considering it, then you have helped that friend. You've worked too hard, whether it's your retirement money, whether it's a business that you sold, to collect that amount of money to have it being stolen from you. And that's what I'm trying to share this with you. You got to protect that asset, that investment. And there are many other areas that you might want to invest that's outside of the scope of this podcast. But as a business owner, it is your responsibility to do the proper due diligence. And if you do not know what questions to ask, hire somebody that can help you ask those questions. And that's where business attorneys come in. That's where CPAs come in. And last thing is follow your instincts. If you feel something does not feel right, just follow your instincts and ask more questions. And I'm still, again, surprised the number of people that have been taken advantage by these companies. And it's because they're basically preying your hopes and dreams and aspirations about doing something better. And that's normal. We want to basically advance. We want to, make that money work for us. But at the same time, there's people out there that are looking for people like you that are trying to generate passive income, and they really know what to do with respect to hitting the right buttons to have that wire transfer go to their accounts. So what I want to do with the podcast is create that break, create that space to make you think and say, you know what, am I really doing the right thing here? Is this really the right thing for me? And if you get that break, that stop sign, and make that phone call, maybe you save yourself from the despair and the agony and the pain that some of these victims, and some of them are my clients, are going through. because the money's gone. Now it's about recovering it. It's about making those who actually perpetuated this fraud, take responsibility, be accountable. And it's going to be an uphill battle. It's not going to be that easy to do that. Because I've learned that in some cases, some of the people that are involved in these businesses are not using their real name. They use aliases. So we have to basically then find out who these people really are to properly serve them with court documents. So you see where I'm getting. So if you feel that if you're looking at a business opportunity like this, a trucking automation business, and by all means, do your homework. You're welcome to call us. You're welcome to call a business attorney, get professional assistance, but look at it very critically, do your due diligence, and think very carefully before you actually hit that wire transfer button and have your funds be transferred to somebody else's account. Extremely important. I hope this information was helpful to you. This is good for episode number 33 of Business SOS, the second episode of the year. Again, I wish you a happy new year and great things for 2024. I'd like to participate in the show. If you have a legal question that you'd like to ask me, like me to go over with the show, please send me an email at rich@richsierra.com. Again, it's rich, R-I-C-H, at richsierra.com. And if I select your question, I'll go over it in the podcast. I'll send you a free copy of my book, Business SOS, 8 Common Legal Mistakes Business Owners Make and How to Avoid Them. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and also you can ask for your local bookstore. If you'd like to learn more about the legal services that we offer, my website is floridasmallbusinesslegalcenter.com. We're on Facebook at FSB Legal. We also have this podcast on YouTube at our YouTube channel at youtube.com at Richard Sierra. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We're on X at Rich_Sierra. Instagram at FSB Legal. If you want to give us a call, the number is 866-842-5202. Remember to follow us, follow the show, give us a 5-star review. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you enjoy your shows. Until next week, this is Rich Sierra. Remember that my goal is to help you succeed.